have so many questions. Show me the answers. I'm afraid. Why am I here? What's the potential? Should I
Welcome back, everyone, to An Ordinary Search for Truth. My name is Nate, and today I'm just going to talk kind of generally about non duality. What is it? Um, a lot of people are unfamiliar with non duality as a philosophy, and it's really not so much a philosophy as much as it is kind of a science. It's not science in the way that you think of science, where it's kind of an objective exploration of the universe, about what is out there, matter, energy, physics, mathematics. It's not really that kind of science, although it includes that. It's a science of consciousness, exploring what consciousness is, what it means to be conscious, and what that means in regards to what reality is and our relationship with reality. Non duality isn't really known by many here in the West. It's kind of a more Eastern thing. And my purpose in making these videos is to expose you and others to what non duality is talking about, what non duality is pointing toward, and it can be known directly in your experience. I was born Christian, specifically LDS, Latter day Saints, um, Mormons, whatever you want to call it. And not only that, but I was born in here in the West. So growing up, I had no idea that non-duality even existed, or that there were hundreds of thousands of people across the world that were exploring what non-duality teaches. So when I did discover it, it was absolutely fascinating to me. And I I kind of credit not being raised in it to being the reason why I'm so passionate about it and why I was so curious and why I was asking so many questions. And that's very important to non-duality, is being curious, asking questions, and being open. So I guess I'll just get right into it. What is non-duality? Well, non meaning not, duality meaning dual or two. So non-duality basically is a fancy way of saying not two, and that's in reference to the universe. Even the word universe, you can break it down into uni, meaning one, oneness, and verse, meaning song, which I think is quite beautiful. That the universe, the word universe, really literally means one song. But non duality is also referring to what we could say as being reality. What is real? Another word would be truth, meaning absolute truth. Truth that is not relative. Truth that is true in all places, at all times, under all circumstances, no matter what. It is the absolute truth. It could also be said, and this is my favorite way of saying it, is what is. That non duality is talking about what is. And that is a very profound thing that we will go into in depth later. In spiritual or religious circles, it could be referred to as God, but God has a lot of baggage. The word God, there are a lot of different ideas that we have of what God is. I was raised with the view that God is this being of flesh and blood, very similar to us, however, with a perfected vessel, a perfected body that is transcendent of the physical, a immortal body, but very much separate from me, separate from you, separate from the universe. So that's how I was raised thinking of God. And a lot of Christian traditions think of it this way. Many others, it's a little bit more wishy-washy as far as what God actually is. God is the infinite. God is omnipresent, omnipotent. And so I don't like to use the word God just because it does have a lot of baggage. It brings up different ideas and beliefs within many different people's minds. So I prefer to stay away from that. But ultimately, it is what is being referred to by all of these traditions. So reality, absolute truth, what is God, and what the fundamental nature of any of these words is. What is the fundamental nature? And non-duality is referring to the fundamental nature, as in the fundamental nature of reality is not two. It is singular. It is oneness. It is not separate within itself. A question that we can ask is, well, why? Why is reality non-dual? Because reality is what is. Again, that's my favorite way of saying it. Reality is what is. It is what is the case. And what is the case must be one. It must be whole. It must be all-inclusive, infinite, complete, unified. It must be. If there was something outside of reality or separate from reality, separate from what is, then it must exist. If there was something outside of reality or what exists, it would also exist, which then means that it would be part of reality. It would be part of what exists. So it's not a long shot to say reality is non-dual. Another way of putting it is that reality is existence, and what isn't included in existence simply doesn't exist. And what doesn't exist is not real, and thus is not part of reality. Nothing can exist outside of what is. Nothing can exist outside of reality. It contains everything. So then this brings up several questions that can be asked and explored, such as, what is reality fundamentally? What is it? What is its nature? What is it made of? What are its characteristics, its qualities, its limits? Another question we can ask is, can we know what reality is fundamentally? Is it possible to know? Or is it beyond our ability to understand? Another question is, if it can be known by us, then how? What faculties are we using to know this? How does it present itself to us? Another question we could ask is, what is our relationship to reality? Which, when exploring non-duality, is kind of a silly question to ask, because a relationship implies two separate things that are separated from one another at some sort of distance, which would then allow for a relationship to take place. But with reality being non-dual, we cannot be separate from it. Because we exist and we know that we exist, we must be included in existence. We know that we are real, that we are. It's undeniable. We can't dispute this fact. Right now, you can look inward and ask, am I? Do I exist? Am I real? And of course, the answer is yes. How can you say that you do not? And so if you are real and you do exist, and you must be included within reality and existence and what is. And if it is non-dual, there's no separation between what you are and what reality is. So that's kind of a silly question to ask. What is the relationship that we have? But it is one worth exploring. And non-duality answers all of these questions and more. In fact, I've found that non-duality answers all questions that can be asked, which is really amazing, honestly. Really, truly amazing. And religion and science kind of take two different paths toward understanding this, but ultimately it's the same thing that we're trying to get at. It's undivided. Again, if it is undivided, that means that you are not separate from it. Really let that sink in for a moment. You are not separate from reality. If we put it into science terms, you are not separate from the universe. If you put it in religious terms, you are not separate from God. And if you are not separate, then you must be a part of. Oh, wait, a part of implies separation. You must be the universe. You must be God. And that is what non-duality is talking about. If you are not separate from it, then you are it. Not a part. You are it. As it, you have the capacity within you to know it. That knowing with which you know that you exist, that knowing with which you know that everything exists, that you can look out at your experience and know your experience, that same knowing has the capacity within it to know itself. So in the same way that you can come to know what other things are that seem to be separate from you, with that same knowing can you know yourself. And when you come to know yourself as you are, fundamentally, your true nature, you simultaneously come to know what the whole of reality is as well. Because again, you're not separate from it. You are it. So if you come to know what you are fundamentally, because you are not separate from reality, you will at the same time come to know what reality is fundamentally. Why? Because they are one and the same. Not separate. Non-dual. That's what it's all about. That is what non-duality is all about. You are what is, and what is you. That is the message. And we're going to look at that message from all sorts of different angles. We're going to ask all sorts of different questions. We're going to try to disprove this. We're going to look at our direct experience to understand what the hell that means. And you're not going to understand right away. I mean, if you do, it's a miracle, and good for you. You're one of the lucky ones. But as it has happened for me, it is as the this is a quote coming from my childhood that I was raised with within the Mormon religion. Line upon line, precept upon precept, bit by bit, you will come to understand what that means. And every time you have a realization about what this means, it will be a deeper and deeper realization. Each time you think you know absolutely, you discover that there is more depth to it than you ever thought possible. You'll have another realization, another awakening, or enlightenment as you call it, but we have many enlightenments. And each one feels more complete and more deep and more absolute than the last. It's a journey that you must take. But at the end of the path, you will come face to face with yourself. You will come face to face with reality and realize that there is no separation between the two. That what you perceive to be, or what you believe to be, the infinite universe that exists somehow outside of or separate from you is in fact exactly you. You are it. It is you. You religious people, if you're watching this, I'm a little bit surprised, but if you are, I'm glad you're here. You will come to realize that God is not separate from you. God is not up in the clouds somewhere. God is you. You are that. God is within you and within everything. God is everything. And I'm so excited to explore this with you. It has been an amazing journey for me, incredibly transformative, and the implications are life-changing. They can be frightening at times. But the last thing that we can equate reality or God or existence or what is or truth, any of these things, the last thing that we can equate all of this with is love. Not love in the way that you probably think of love. Unconditional love. Infinite love. Love that knows no separation. Love that knows no boundaries or limits or requirements. Unconditional love is synonymous with all of these other things that I've been talking about. And so when you come face to face with yourself in reality, you also come face to face with unconditional love and realize that you are that. That everything is that. That it's always been that. Now I'm sure you're thinking, all of this sounds really great. All of this maybe sounds a little fantastical. Incredible. Unbelievable. Yeah. Yes, you're right. It is. But it's also true. And no amount of me talking to you about it or describing it or pointing at it, no amount of any of that is going to take you there. I can only take you so far. I can only take you as far as the mind will allow you to go. I will only be able to take you as far as you are open enough to go. But in the end, you have to take the final steps. You have to walk the path. You have to get there yourself. How? Through direct experience, through undeniable, irrefutable, 100% certain, absolute, direct experience. That is the only way. So you can sit there and listen to me talk all day long, but it will not take you there. You have to actually open yourself up to the idea that this might be possible. You don't have to believe that it's possible. Just be open to the idea that maybe it could possibly be the way that it is. That's the first step. If you don't do that, then I might as well be talking to a wall, to be perfectly honest with you. I listened to videos like this and read books about this for months and months, years and years. And the only thing that that stuff is good for is bit by bit opening your mind to the possibility, little bit at a time, little bit at a time. Because if it went all the way open all at once, it would be terrifying to your mind. It would be terrifying to your ego. It would be terrifying to everything that you think that you are. Your mind is currently not open enough to accept the truth, the absolute truth. You're still very attached and identified with your beliefs, with your thoughts about what you think reality is, what you believe reality is, what you've been taught that reality is. You're still very attached to those things. And so the whole path of non-duality, of enlightenment, of spiritual realization, of self-actualization, the whole path is not trying to find somewhere out there what is true, but simply to strip away everything that you have placed in front of what is true. And you have to clear those things away, but they're very deep, they're very set. It's a house of cards that you have constructed, that others have helped you construct, that's no fault of your own or fault of anyone else's. It's just what happens. And you do not want to see this house of cards fall, because what is left after that? You think that it's nothing. And we're terrified of that. And so my job and my challenge, really, the challenge of every teacher of non-duality, is to carefully, slowly open your mind to being able to be okay with what is. Just to be okay with it. Just to accept it. To surrender all of the things that you think about it and believe about it, and just see it for what it is. And it's extremely difficult to do. For me, it has taken so long, and I still struggle with it. There are still things within me and my mind and my worldview and my identity. There are still things that must be cleared away, that I'm still working on. It is a path that must be walked, but you must walk it. I can point and direct your awareness towards things and say, hey, here's a question, explore this question. Hey, here's something worth looking at. Look at it. Just look. Just see. See what you see. That's all I'm doing. Okay, I'm not trying to give you more beliefs. I'm not trying to give you more ideas or more thoughts. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to help you use your mind to empty your mind, to clear the lens, as it were, to remove what you think about it so that you can see it. So I hope you're ready for this journey. I thought I was when I first started, but I had no idea what was to come. It's okay for you to have objections. It's okay for you to have resistance. It's okay for you to not feel like you can accept or be open to it all right away. That's fine. That's part of it. That is part of it. It's inescapable. So accept that first. Be open to that first, and understand that it will not be easy. But if you just take that first step, then you can take the next, and the next, and the next, and the next, step by step by step, down the path, until you realize that there are no more steps to be taken. There's nowhere else to go. There's nowhere else to look. There's nothing else to believe or think or hypothesize. And there you will stand, face to face with yourself and with God and with reality and the universe, and realize that it is all one. It is all non-dual, not two, not you and it out there somewhere. Not you over here, a path to walk, and truth over there. It's right here, right now. And perhaps it will change your life as it has changed mine. Perhaps. You won't know until you try. You won't know until you ask. You won't know until you look. And that's what I'm inviting you to do. So join me on this non-dual path. If you are a seeker of truth, this shouldn't scare you. Not, well, it might scare you a little bit, but it shouldn't scare you so much that you are unwilling to look, ask, or walk. It should just excite you and ignite your curiosity and charge ahead into your fear and see what you find on the other side. Maybe, just maybe, you will find truth. Just maybe you will find God. Just maybe you will find peace and unconditional love. So with that, I will conclude this video, and thank you for being here and listening to it. And go ahead and subscribe if you enjoy what I'm doing here. Comment. I love hearing from you and responding to you. And hit a like if you appreciate what I'm doing and if I spark your curiosity. Don't worry, I've got a lot more content for you to enjoy. Click the link to the right to see a video that goes hand in hand with what you just watched. On the left is a playlist I recommend you check out. And down below, you can see my latest video release. Your support means the world to me, so thank you.